Hey internet, how's it going? So today my goal was to get rid of some old CSS from a website that is a combination of websites where it's really difficult just to look at a shared style and know like, hey, is that actually used by anything? So this is Test Double, our company's website. And there's not a whole lot going on. It's a marketing page, and then there's some other pages here about like our agency and our services and careers where you should totally come and look at our jobs and apply because we're a great team. There's like the only interactivity is this contact page. There's a blog, and the blog's like run on a totally separate static site generator, but it's a thing too, but it shares a lot of styles with the first thing. And the problem isn't that. The problem is that there's like this heritage now of almost 10 years of CSS detritus. As we've rewritten and remade the site, we haven't always decommissioned all of the old pages before cutting over. And so there's still like little kind of bits and bobs of CSS rules and stuff that have kind of lingered for years, and it's been exacerbated by the fact that we just took all of these disparate little kind of mini website repos and builds and recombobulated them all into a single mono repo and a single running Heroku dyno process and server. So that's via this gem that we wrote called Static Rails. So basically you can take a Rails app and you can have one or more static site generators kind of like running underneath it, both in development mode. So like all of them are running their daemon simultaneously, watching for files, and then you can like kind of specify what paths and subdomains that they should be mounted to. And then also in production, of course, like you can tell it, hey, compile this stuff, put the files in the right folder, and then build and stuff. So that all works great. But nevertheless, it means that I've got like CSS in 4 places, and so it's really difficult to figure out where. So this is in our web project. Grab the latest and greatest. All right, cool. It's difficult to figure out like what is actually using what CSS. So for example, if we just visualize this in Finder here, we've got some stuff over in vendor style, and this is just, this used to be a standalone like NPM module. And so there's font declarations, there's some icons, there's a lot of Sass, the fonts themselves, there's some shared JavaScript, but not very much. And then the 2 websites, they live entirely under blog and site here. So our blog, we've got, its own set of CSS, and it's like they're kind of similarly composed. Our designer Ray used a lot of BEM, where if you've ever seen CSS or Sass with way too many hyphens and underscores, it was probably BEM. It's just a very particular style. CSS over in the site here is mostly all kind of based out of there. So we've got a lot of CSS floating around. But the big news is, like over the last few weeks, I've been updating our website to kill off a lot of these old pages, like even pages that we haven't touched in a long time have now been kind of migrated to the latest design system. I don't like the phrase design system, so I'm just going to abuse it to say like CSS file as a design system. So it's been moved on to the new design system. And that means that in theory, a lot of CSS just became obsolete. And I don't know where it is or what it is, because it's been years now, and I'm not the only person who's been working on this website over the years. So, like, that's a problem statement. So how do we figure this out? So I started like I always do by Googling, and then Google started like it always does by referencing CSS tricks and a Chris Coyier article, like this site, and this person's so prolific. Indeed, hard problem, motivation, looking at coverage. This is actually what we're going to do. There are some other tools here. This didn't work. A lot of websites too, like will say, hey, we'll find your unused CSS. And what they'll do is like scrape your website and be like, hey, here's like a minified rule or something. Very few of them are going to like look at source maps if you even have those up in production. Part of the build process, this is theoretically very doable if you have like a very straightforward build for your site, but if you've got like, you know, like a shared directory that's all symlinked over into different other directories, and then you've got like one Hugo app that's all in Golang, and then you've got another, like in our case, Lineman.js, which is like a grunt-based static site builder from 10 years ago that we wrote. It is very difficult to just like jam this into your build process. And we have some others that are processed by the Rails app itself. Yeah, this crawling thing, I tried a bunch of this and none of them worked very well, even though we are publishing our source maps. And then of course the favorite technique is like just do it the hard way, which sure. Visual regression testing is also great. You know, the folks at Percy are awesome. So if you've ever tried, or if you haven't tried doing visual regression testing where you're making a lot of design changes, you want to make sure that the website still looks right, check out Percy. Percy's a great tool. But anyway, I was like not overly enthused by this stuff. It just didn't seem to work real well for me. And so I ended up doing something a little bit different. And to demonstrate, let's pop open, first I always fire up Vim in my first tab, and now I'm going to start a Rails server. And what this is going to do is it's going to start a Puma server, which is the Rails server, and then it starts that Hugo live server, compiling apparently almost 800 pages of blog stuff. And then our lineman stuff down here. So great. So it's built all of our sites, and those should all be living now at localhost 3000, and so we can, you know, see the site is exactly here. And if we click this blog link, it actually goes to blog.localhost, just like it's a localhost Etsy hosts hack, so that the Rails server can see the subdomain, so that it can know to serve this stuff instead of the main site. And you know, if we look at our assets here, sources, network, CSS, we just got one big old CSS file. It's SHA fingerprinted in this case, and it's called main.css on the blog, and here it's called app.css, and we're just going to hope that that merges well. All right, so let us see what we got. So what I ended up doing was, there is a tool in Chrome, and specifically in Chrome, that we saw referenced in that blog post, that like basically is designed to perform code coverage. And normally, like when you talk about code coverage, you're thinking about testing. That's where the concept took off, which is like, see how many lines of code got exercised, see how many branches got followed while you were running your tests, to see whether or not your code is at least exercised by tests. Well, you know, code coverage works in production or in anything. It's just, you know, kind of innocently trying to detect what code paths got exercised by instrumenting the code first before it runs, with little like before and after hooks around each line to know like, yes, this got tripped, this didn't get tripped. That's how coverage works. Well, the cool thing about Chrome's coverage, and this is a really good article, it actually works for CSS just as well as JavaScript, as well as combined files. And so I've never seen, or never really thought very hard about getting code coverage for CSS, but it makes a lot of sense. If a rule is never used, then it's considered uncovered, and if a rule is used and presumably contributes somehow to the rendering or the layout, then it is covered as green. So that's useful, except the way that this coverage tool works is it's all gated to just the one HTML page that you're on. So if you're on a single page app and you click around a bunch, you will surely generate a lot of coverage, and it'll be a realistic portrayal of like how much stuff got used. But if you're like us and you're just a static website and you click around a bunch, the coverage tool gets reset every time because these are discrete page loads, and that's not super useful. So there's this somewhat unmaintained Chrome extension called discoverage, like discover your coverage. And all it does is encourages you to run this coverage tool, export all of these separate coverage files into a single folder, and then point it at the folder and say, hey, merge all these together. And then it'll show you a single view of everything. So we're going to take a stab at doing that today. Of course, I use Safari primarily, and this is not a Safari extension, although I think Safari supports Chrome extensions now, or at least Apple keeps announcing that it will. But surely that is like a way to get it to the App Store faster. I doubt that I can just like click it. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up Chromium, because I do not trust the Google Chrome updater on my system, because I have a lot of problems with buggy Macs. and I don't want to exacerbate the process. Here we go, localhost. So cool. Now to get to the coverage dingus, it is challenging because it's not any of these things by default. There's actually so much stuff in DevTools now that there's this whole run command thing. Oh, look at all this stuff. There's so many things you can do here, and if you just start typing coverage, you'll see this thing called a drawer, which is a UI element that is the thing underneath tab. So here we go, this is the coverage drawer. And per block or per function probably doesn't matter for CSS. And we're going to start instrumenting coverage and reload page. So let's do that. URL filter here, I don't care about URL, but I do only care about CSS. All right, so we're looking at CSS and this is 79% covered. And so a couple things I want to do, you can see it went up or down a little bit, is I want to, shrink the page so that I'm looking at, I see the menu, I hover over everything. Obviously, if I click any of these links, it's going to take me places and then that's going to break. So that's just about everything that I could possibly do to exercise this. I'm only up to 73% coverage. It actually went down, it looks like. So that's great. Then I'm going to click export. And I'm going to pop over, new folder, and I'm going to call this CSS coverage. I'm just going to dump it on my desktop, not going to change the name of the file, shouldn't matter. I'm going to go one page at a time. So I'm going to go to agency page. This is already instrumenting, it looks like. Cool. Scroll through, we've got this little mappy-do. We can click through and see our folks in different areas. I'm going to make the site bigger now. So when the site's bigger, you can just click on one state. In theory, is it still too zooming out with command minus? Okay, so when the site's very big, then you can click on a single state or province. All right, so that exercise that about as well as I'm going to. All right, so that's another page down, services page. Again, these pages aren't super interactive, so I imagine that as soon as the page loads, I've seen most of the CSS. Oh shoot, but I forgot to export it. Yeah, that's the tricky bit. So here we go, we're gonna do that again. Clicking, clicking, clicking. There we go, just Christine in North Carolina. All right, now we're gonna export the second thing. Boom, services. Like I was saying, we have services, we are a consultancy. You can read all about it at our website, which now has a lot of unused CSS, but is otherwise, I think, a good website. Add your logo to it. Okay, cool. So that's that page. Save that off. Okay, so careers, this goes to recruiter box, code of conduct page we just saw. We should probably try to visit some of those musty corners because there's going to be some standalone CSS for really each of these pages. So that would be this page here. Yep. So I'm just gonna, in these smaller pages, just visit the page. And I know that that dumps you to this page, which is another page. And it's nice because I know I only have, so many of these. And I'm already through most of them. What else did I not touch? Oh yeah, we have these case studies too of particular great clients of ours, like Gusto. All right, so here's a case study page, it's a totally different layout. Has some pull quotes, some other kind of CSS components and stuff. Make it real big, make it real tiny. Okay, that's a good one. And now I'm going to go visit the blog side of the app, and I don't know, just hope that it's smart. I'm actually more skeptical now that I see the CSS is named a different thing. I doubt the source maps are going to be helpful in helping it recombine these later. All right, so return this to normal zoom. A lower resolution than I'm used to working in for this recording. All right, so we just hit our ID badge number 00100. So this is the blog post page, exercises, a single page. We'll save that one off. I think I forgot to save off the main page. So this page also, only interactivity here is you can type in there. Yeah, okay, save that off. We also have talks. That's a different UI. Here's Tommy talking about parcel. Actually, you know what? Some of our talks have a transcript widget, so I want to make sure I capture that too. So, this has a transcript. Yeah, there's the transcript, dingus. Cool. I miss giving talks. Let's have conferences again. The talks page itself is a list. May as well capture that. I guess like once we're cooking, it's pretty easy just to go through and click all these. All right, what else we got? This one, we're almost done. The only thing I can imagine next is actually finding an author. So let's pick on for all. Okay, so he doesn't have any posts yet, so that's maybe not a great example. So let's click on River. River's got a lot of posts. Great. So that's what that looks like. And I think there's actually an, oh right, gosh, I keep forgetting this stuff. It's almost like no tools were exactly designed for this. But they should be. Maybe I should write a Chrome extension for the first time since the one that I wrote 10 years ago that just put mustaches on every image on the page. All right, so here's this one. Save this off. And I think we are about done. Okay. So with that out of the way, let me go and install this Chrome extension again. Oh, well, all right. See? Don't look behind the curtain. All right, add to Chrome. Yay. All right, there's that. And it's a real straightforward thing. So what it wants is it wants the file URI to wherever that folder is. And of course I put that on my desktop like a silly person. Easiest way to get a fully qualified URL for a file is just to drag it onto the terminal. So there we go. That last slash is probably unnecessary, so I'll delete the last slash and then paste. Load only resources matching, I don't know. Darn it. Did you need that extra slash? This worked yesterday. What gives? It's obviously reading this while I hit characters. Oh wait, I remember now. Yes, this is actually part of the screencast. This is why I installed and uninstalled, because it will just silently not have rights to read files, because turns out Chrome extensions, like the ones that I made that would read every single image and put a mustache on it way back when, can read all your financial data and then just upload it to hackers somewhere. So what I want is to change the options. Why can't I see this? Add to the list of things that worked fine yesterday. There is a instruction here about this. Ensure allow access to file URLs. Since there's a screencast, there's a screenshot. Okay, so maybe I just have to go to Chrome extensions and look at it from that list first. And then click that options button. Details. There we go. Allow access to file URLs. Bingo. Try this again. Go over here, copy that, paste that. And boom goes the dynamite. All right, so I want the app CSS first. So some of this stuff, so here it says 55% covered. Some of this stuff is like font faces, and I'm just assuming it doesn't know what to do with these. But you can see some stuff is covered, and my goal here isn't necessarily to, work this up directly into a list and then just go delete everything that's red, but rather to think about all the stuff that is red and ask myself, should I add this to some kind of working list to go check? Because I can, of course, when I'm locally working, experiment and delete stuff. Now this one says it's a Safari Edge hack. So it's very possible this is still necessary, but because I wasn't using Safari or Edge, it wasn't invoked. H2 spaced out. Now this looks like the kind of stuff that I wrote a long time ago. So I could just start, you know, like a to-do list and grep for these things later, because it looks like there's a lot of media rules around it. And because it doesn't look like BEM, it doesn't look like the new style, it's probably dead code. Interesting that, do I not use I or EM tags? Surely there's an explanation for this. So anyway, I mean, this is a long file, so we don't have to go through the whole thing. I wonder, am I using any iframes? Block container copy small. Possible I'm not using that, possible I just didn't shrink the page enough. So a lot of green here, that's good. But there's also a lot of, yeah, did I miss a page? Look at, this is the most BEM-y BEM stuff. I don't know what BEM stands for. Yeah, this is a lot of dashes and colons. Ah, site container. I know this was old, so probably everything in the file, wherever that thing is. So let's actually, like, just as an example. Come on. We're gonna grep for site container. Thanks Apple Notes for converting that to Markdown, but that's not what I wanted. Site container. SAS. Okay, cool. So because it was in dev mode, you know, things weren't minified. It didn't have to look at my source maps or anything as far as I can tell. And that means that, like, when I'm grepping for a CSS class, it's generally actually there. It's the right one. So this is dead, I'm pretty sure. Okay. Now there's a whole file called site container. Where's that site container file? Yeah, let's just remove that whole file and remove that reference to it. I really doubt that, like, so now, like, this is where I think using this single coverage report that combines everything as a guide, I can start looking, okay, so banner is still used. Interesting. Huh. All right, well, I'm not going to delete that one yet, but I am going to delete this other site container reference. This is probably, like, one was the list of imports for the blog and the other was the list of imports for the site. Import site container on, oh my goodness, did I do that? Oh, good, I did that. That's a very strange way to import something. All right, moving right along. Site container, That's a deleted file. Cushion on bottom. Yeah. No more items. All right. So my microphone's actually in the way of, like, my Vim command prompt, and so I can't see what I'm grepping. Okay, so that was everything there. And now we're going to see what the website does when we reload it. Yep, looks good. All right, so git push YOLO and then deploy. Yeah, so anyway, that's going to be the rest of my morning then. Hope this was useful to somebody as just like a pretty, you know, blunt instrument for trying to check out what parts or what regions of your CSS might be unused through actually looking at coverage as opposed to just guessing or you know, trying to rely on some website to, like, look at your production code for you or to include yet another build tool or npm module as part of your build, which may or may not work based on your situation. So yeah, happy CSS deletion and have a great day.